Greetings, everyone. We are live. This is Artcasters number 53. Today, we're going to be talking about protecting your artwork against theft, a little bit about copyright and trademark and stuff like that, even though I'm not an attorney. I don't know. Are any of you guys attorneys that I don't know about?
I play one on TV.
But we do have, I mean, collectively, we've got quite a bit of experience. So I think, we'll give you our opinion on a few things, and you can take that for what it's worth. But usually in the show, we kind of like catch up before the show a little bit, but I was running a little late. So I was just kind of curious what everyone's working on. What's going on with you, Jeff?
Not much. Working on a little oil painting, fantasy little fun piece I'm doing. Nothing's really happening other than just the usual. Working on some stop motion during the day and stuff. So
when should we expect to see the next stop motion video?
Probably at least a couple months.
even like progress stuff, or just?
Oh well, no. I'm sure I'll put a video about that up pretty soon. But as far as like getting the one finished, it'll probably be a couple months, probably.
Yeah. So what about you, Kevin? What's up with you?
I am working on the Monkey Mod Friend show. Inking a page.
Yeah, we're not supposed to ask what page you're on.
Nope.
I learned my lesson.
I won't tell you anymore.
Oh yeah, so we got a guest again. We got Josh is back again. What's going on, Josh?
Hi. I'm working on a page for quarterly stories, and then I just recently posted a couple of filler strips on quarterlystories.com. They're these kind of like lighthearted, like 3-panel, 1-panel Sunday funny style comics that I use to kind of hopefully like further the story along, but they're a lot more lighthearted. For those of you who've like been reading quarterly stories or checked it out or whatever, like, it's a little heavier. So it's more of like a lighthearted fun thing that I can do on my lunch breaks at work to kind of provide more content for the site. And I'm working on page like 41 of quarterly stories. So yeah.
So we're allowed to ask what page you're on.
Of course. Yeah.
So that's cool that you kind of tried to kind of create a balance, because your story it's pretty intense, So that's kind of cool. I'm gonna have to actually go and like check it out. I've been listening. If you guys haven't been checking out Josh's YouTube channel, you definitely should. I put a link in the description. But it's a really good story, and he's been like reading it and everything. And like I said, it's pretty intense, pretty captivating. So
thanks.
Yeah, I really like those videos. I was going to tell you that, but I guess I haven't seen you since you started putting them up. But those are really good. Like I don't know like what the formula or whatever, however you do it. I mean, it really works. And here's something that I want to tell you is like when I first went and checked out your comic, I actually went and I read, maybe one page or something, and then I just kind of went through the rest and just looked at them. I guess just because I'm a visual artist guy, I don't really, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I kind of looked at it, just kind of, took in the art and stuff. And when you started reading them online, I totally got interested, and I'm like, I got to go fucking read that thing, you know what I mean? And then I went and I read the whole thing and read all like the little filler strips you do and stuff, and it's pretty good. I mean, it's effective. That's what kind of the point I was getting at, I think.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
All right. It's a neat idea. You know what I mean? I don't see anybody else doing webcomics really doing something like that.
Yeah,
it's
a tough one too, because like I think that's kind of half of the challenge of like trying to promote it is like I don't see a ton like in the genre that I'm writing.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of I just am still looking for my niche, and trying to find that audience. So I don't know. I figure like eventually, like with consistency, hopefully that'll just naturally happen. We'll see.
Sure. Yeah, I think so.
All right. Well, I guess we can dive into the topic this week. So I've been getting some questions about, what do I do to protect my artwork, or, I'm concerned about sharing my ideas online because I think somebody might take them or whatever, or steal them. And every once in a while you'll see something online where, whether it's like the splatter artist, where they're stealing artwork and stuff. And so, I mean, I kind of know where I stand on this, but I wanted to know, you guys, so how much sleep do you lose over thinking about people stealing your artwork?
None.
Yeah. I'm with Kevin. What about you, Josh?
I used to, when I was doing t-shirt design, more so, but now not at all. And after about like 6 years of t-shirt design, I got over it. Because it just inevitably, like, well, we'll get into that. Yeah, not much.
So yeah, I'll ask, since you kind of brought that up, we'll kind of float around back and forth. But as far as, was it more the idea, like letting people know about the idea, or was it actually once you posted the artwork out there?
I think initially, I mean, the ideas I'm still pretty, like, if I were still doing t-shirt design, I would hold on to ideas like in a lockbox. I mean, and I'd still do it now, because if there's a decent idea that hasn't been done or hasn't been done a lot, you should do it like quickly, and you'll make hopefully money doing it. Yeah. And if you're like the first guy to hit like a trend, like you can make a lot in that industry. But once it's out there, I mean, it's difficult because it's like an idea, and a lot of concepts you can't really copyright, so you kind of have to just let it go,
Right.
And
sorry.
And then there's just this weird thing in t-shirts where, like, a lot of the time, like, you'll have the same idea somebody had like 5 years ago, and you don't know that they had it 5 years ago, because, like, a lot of the time we tap into the same creative. I don't know. I have this theory that, like, there's kind of like a creative bubble that we all tap into, and sometimes we all tap into the same thing at the same time, Yeah,
so, I always say, if it's a great idea, chances are somebody's already thought of it,
Oh, yeah.
But when I was doing like t-shirt designs and stuff, and I mean, I was, I would always like do a Google search. If I had an idea, I'd always do a Google search, and like half the time somebody had already thought of it, even though I wasn't even aware of it. But yeah, I'm kind of like that with ideas too. And I've still got t-shirt ideas that I don't know if I'll ever do. I've got one that I can almost say it will sell, but like the last few, I used to post like mashups and stuff on Redbubble, and a lot of them have been taken down. It's like they're cracking down on it. So I don't want to spend all that time for something that'll take down. Plus I really want to, kind of do my own stuff, but yeah, and the other problem is if you are doing kind of mashups or fan art and things like that, you really don't have much protection, because literally you're kind of under the radar doing it, kind of not totally legally anyway. So depending, if it's parody or whatever, but so if somebody does take the same idea of a mashup you did, there's not a whole lot you could say, because one, they may have just come up with it on their own, and two, even if they didn't, then, and I've seen a lot of people that do the same kind of, like, for a while there was like the cereal boxes. I don't know if those are as big now as they were, but they would take like a superhero and make a cereal, out of it. So one person kind of started that and started going with it, and then other people did, and kind of sort of made a name for themselves just doing cereal box, ads of of cartoon characters, or licensed properties and stuff. And you're almost like, oh, that's a cereal guy. But then another guy can come by and say, I'm the cereal guy too, and there's nothing you can do about it. Like there was an artist I used to follow who would take, she would do like a lot of Disney princesses mesh with like Doctor Who and stuff like that, and kind of she was kind of the person that did that. But again, anyone can come along and do it too. So anyway. But yeah, it's like ideas, I'm a little hesitant, just like spoilers in my comics and stuff like that. I don't really like to put those out there that much. I'm really kind of the opposite when it comes to putting artwork out. But I wanted to talk to Jeff and Kevin, get their opinion on, well, Kevin already said he doesn't lose any sleep over putting artwork out there. So I don't know if you want to kind of give your opinion on what why don't you really worry about people stealing your stuff online?
Well, it's going to happen, for one.
Okay.
It happened to me when I was doing the first 100 Days of Making Comics. I did a video about it even because, it happened while I was doing it. I had used that Teespring site to do that Monkey Mod t-shirt, and somebody was looking for it because they lost my link or they couldn't find where I put the link or something. And they did a Google search, and they found that someone had taken the very first drawing I ever did of Monkey Mod and put it on a t-shirt on Zazzle.
Dang.
But there was enough of like a community that rallied around, and it got taken down, within hours.
Yeah.
Of me finding out. I mean, the unfortunate thing, it's Zazzle, so who knows if it made any money. So
right.
I didn't get that. It wasn't like Warner Brothers or all of a sudden took my character and made a show out of it and stole it from me or anything.
Yeah. The weird thing is, I mean, it's like we have a hard enough time selling our own stuff. And to have an audience that knows our stuff, and if anyone's going to sell it and be able to sell it, it's going to be us. And like I said, we have a hard enough time doing that. The idea that somebody else is going to come along, take our artwork and be able to make a profit with it is kind of crazy. So I don't know. I like you said, you're not sure if they would have sold it in any way, and it's just weird.
Yeah, but it's also ideas are a dime a dozen, and the comic I'm working on is not the only spy comic that's out there. It's not the only spy comic that will be out there. It's not the only spy comic there's ever been. And especially one that's like outlandish. There's plenty of that, So I'm not too worried about it because I'm the only one who can tell the story how I tell the story. And I'm the only one who can make this character how I make this character.
Bless you.
And in this day and age, with the internet and and us being who we are, independent creators, what are you going to do? You're going to create a masterpiece and no one's going to know? It's like I really think you need to put your stuff out there.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers the question fully, but.
Yeah. So what about you, Jeff? You have any experience with people like stealing your artwork, and as a result of that, do you do anything to protect it when you put it out there?
No, not really.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen my stuff posted different places that I didn't post it, but I don't really worry about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I wish I had a better answer, but I just don't think about it.
No, because I think we're kind of all sort of on the same page, and it's like, I don't want this to sound like not condescending is not the word I'm looking for, but it seems like a lot. No, not to you, Jeff. Just people,
I meant to everybody. Preach to them, man.
Well, people are. I think a lot. It seems like a lot of the people, and this is going to sound bad, but it seems like most of the people that are more concerned that their artwork's going to get stolen. It's like it's probably not even at the point where people are going to steal it half the time. Like you just don't see like big like people far more successful than any of us. You don't see them throwing watermarks all over the place and doing all of that kind of stuff and putting real low res images and things like that. I mean, it's just you just don't see that with bigger successful artists, and I think there's a reason for that. So but I was there like a lot. Some of the people that are concerned about that at one point. I was doing the same thing. I was afraid to post images that were too big, back in the 90s and stuff. But then again, back then it was like you can't really post anything that big because it takes forever to download. But
Did
but
you
I
guys
guess
happen
go
to
ahead.
see? This has something to do with what you're talking about. Recently, like Casey Neistat was ranting and raving all over Twitter and YouTube about somebody stealing one of his friends' artwork, basically, for T-shirts, and it was like a big company. I can't remember the whole details. I'm sure somebody could look it up and find out in like 2 seconds. But
I bet it's Urban Outfitters. They steal everybody.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've heard Urban Outfitters, and I thought there was another one that kind of got in trouble for that.
Yeah, it was like something like that, like a real big company. And then they showed, a picture of the girls. It was like very like stylized, almost stick figure-y type art. And then, the exact same thing all over a skirt, And I'm like, whoa, man, that's pretty blatant.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten like blatantly ripped off. There's a couple t-shirt companies. It's mostly the stuff I've done for Threadless that got printed. There were a couple of t-shirt companies in China that still sell like League of Cliches or Cliche Evil Supervillains and Attack of Literacy, like those two shirts. That like I've had people send me photographs of that with like a Chinese tag on it. It's like, and there's nothing that you can do in that case because it's, like China has no copyright law. But I've also had people in like Australia rip off my stuff. Like I did this T-shirt of Kermit the Frog as like an X-ray. It's called like Puppet Checkup, and it just shows a hand like inside of Kermit. And that exact design was being sold by like a retailer in Australia, and I had a friend of mine who was a lawyer in a cease and desist letter. So they ended up taking it down. But I've never like been ripped like where you're like carried at a chain or something. That would be infuriating, Like go to like a Target and see your artwork on stuff.
Yeah, that'd be brutal. With the Kermit one, did they just take your idea or did they take like your actual art?
Yeah, it was the art.
Boy.
Yeah, they just took the art and screen printed it. And, I guess that what happened was the T-shirt company had paid some artist, who was a younger, new artist who thought, oh, this is online. I can just steal it because it's IRS and make some money. So, yeah. But, but like, it's going to happen regardless. Like, especially with stuff that gets shown. And, like, ideally, like, if it's a big company, you probably have more recourse than if it's a small company, and you just, you friend lawyers, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't want to act like it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But I think
that's why you got to put up password protected images on Facebook. That's what I do. Everybody's got to sign in. I'm sorry, Scott. I didn't interrupt your point.
No, I just got to remember what my point was. But I think percentage-wise, if you're weighing, I'm worried about somebody stealing my artwork versus I'm not going to show anyone my artwork.
Yeah,
I think that's definitely more of a detriment. I mean, because it can happen, but I just don't. A lot of cases, like you said, if it's in other countries or whatever, particularly China, there's really not a whole lot you can do. But and I've had stuff stolen. I did a logo for Karate Studio, and next thing I know, a bunch of other karate studios are taking the same images and using it for theirs. And I mean, so it's weird because some people just don't realize that there's actually people, and I've had clients that have thought this, that if it's on Google Images, why I can't use it?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of education there that needs to happen. What else was that? So I was going to say to what Josh was talking about with his Kermit image, about the kid that just kind of took that online. That's one of the things, and I don't want to segue too much because I think this is still on the same topic, but there's sites out there like 99 Designs and Fiverr and stuff like that. I mean, a lot of the stuff out there is just stuff people are ripping off, like with logo designs, because there's no way you can charge $5 for a logo. So if you're doing that, a lot of the people are actually just like stealing other people's logos. Maybe if anything, changing them around a little bit, but if you're looking for a logo or something for $5 a pop, there's a pretty good chance it's stolen. So it's just something to think about. But I guess we're kind of going to go all over the place, but I just kind of wanted to go back. So I think the original question that somebody asked was, how do you like copyright an image, or how do you, what do you do that? How do you do that and everything? And just to kind of clarify, the moment you create anything, any kind of artwork or anything like that, it's copyright. Now, if you had to go to court or whatever, you would have to probably register that, like to fight it in court. But and that's another plus for putting things out there, because if you create something, you put it out there and you can prove that it's been out there, then that kind of shows that, hey, this is when you created it. This is when it was, in quotes, published, when you put it online. But a work doesn't even have to be published technically to be copyright. Just the moment you create something, it's copywritten. Now, I mean, if I was to take every single piece of artwork that I've ever created and registered it, I'd be broke. I mean, there'd be no way I could even afford it. But if you do want to go that route, one of the things you can do is like collect your work, and then, like in a book, like an art book, if you're really concerned. And I don't go to that trouble to do that, unless it is like a book that I've published or whatever. I think there's a few things that I have registered before, like my comic books and stuff like that. But it's really, if you're concerned about it, it really isn't that necessary, because your artwork is actually copyright as soon as you create it. And then there's other things. There's copyrights, and there's trademarks, and intellectual properties and things like that. So like copyright is, again, that's any kind of tangible artwork, whether it can be music, it can be games or animation, and it doesn't have to be like physical, it can be digital as well. Like an intellectual property, that's more like an idea, like kind of what we were talking about earlier, where that's the kind of stuff that you kind of want to, maybe, keep under wraps, because first of all, I think when you're writing a story, you've all heard that. I've heard two different schools of thought on this, but it's like once you put it out there, it's like, oh, it's out there, I don't really have to worry about develop it anymore, because I already kind of put it out there. So like, I think ideas and things you might want to keep close to your chest, but as far as your artwork and stuff, I wouldn't be concerned about that. And if you are
Scott,
what's that?
Is it actually the moment you make it, or is it actually, because I always thought it was the moment you publish it, so that you have some kind of proof? Because I mean, the moment you make it is pretty much just your word against somebody else's, right?
Yeah, it is, but there's probably ways that there might be other ways you can prove it. I would say that's why I'm kind of advocating putting your work out there, because I think it makes it easier to prove. And there's all kinds of things, like they used to say, if you put your artwork in like an envelope and mail it to yourself, and as far as I know, that really doesn't really hold up in court or anything, because I mean, if you wanted to, you could just go and send yourself a blank envelope, unsealed, or just unseal it with
I think that is a myth.
Yeah. So I mean, that kind of stuff, but that's a lot of trouble I don't think you really need to worry about. But as far as I know, the moment you create it, but I do agree that, I mean, it seems like a little hard to prove if it hasn't been published. And again, when I say published, I don't mean it has to be like a book that's on sale at Barnes and Noble or something. It's just something you put on.
No, you can put it on a blog or create it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Show the creation of it.
I've had, there was somebody, saying something about, oh, your comic book looks like Stranger Things, and I'm like, well, my comic
they totally ripped you off, dude.
Again, these are, I think Stranger Things is way better than my comic book, and I don't think they ripped me off. But it's all from the same source. You can see how ideas developed. We're probably interested in the same things, or whatever, and the stories are different. I mean, but there's some similarities. But if I had to, and I'm not saying they ripped me off, but just to defend myself that I didn't rip them off, I can easily say, well, yeah, I've been doing this comic book for years, so, and there's the proof online, so.
Yeah,
and publication actually is more of a proof against getting ripped off than keeping your secret safely guarded.
Yeah.
Let's just hypothetically say you have this great idea for a story, it's like a comic book, and you're having a conversation with a friend, and they end up being say a Walt Disney type character who's like, I like that idea, I'm gonna make a movie about it, give you no credit. Then you know, you have no recourse. You're basically screwed, you know?
Yeah.
Where, like, I mean, just look up, like, The Thief and the Cobbler for anybody who's interested. So this is, like, an animation this guy worked on for, like, 25 years and got ripped off, and it was never really published, so he didn't really hold any copyright. It's
Well, he actually sold that to Disney though.
yeah. Well, no, that's true.
And then they, instead of like putting it out, they decided to make Aladdin. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that's the actual real story. So he kind of ripped himself off there.
Yeah. So he kind of screwed himself, but at the same time, it's like, let's say you're getting in a conversation with somebody and they rip off your idea. If you have it published, like it bypasses that whole thing. So, you know, and also I totally agree with Scott too. Like, you know, it's usually younger artists who are like really afraid of their genius ideas being ripped off, and also like the longer you're at art, like, and in the art world, you realize like coincidence is like the Stranger Things thing that Scott was bringing up. Like that's just gonna happen because we're in this world where we're all getting like similar cultural influences and stuff. So a lot of our ideas aren't really all that original. It's just how you execute them that makes them good. So I don't know. I mean, you know, it's a mix, but I'd say publishing is probably the easiest way to protect yourself from getting ripped off. You know?
Yeah. Hold on a second. I'm just trying to draw this line.
There's another thing. Well, this might be off the subtopic, but something that you and Josh, Scott, you and Josh have touched on about how usually it's more the younger or beginner artist who's so concerned that their genius is going to get ripped off. And I get it, you know. I mean, I was there at one point too, but what you find out as you do this longer is that if you're such a creative genius, then you'll always have another idea.
Yeah.
You always create more. Not to say you want to get ripped off, because you don't, but I'm just saying, like, your genius idea now is going to sound like crap to you 2 years from now, you know? And so it shouldn't be so precious, I think, you know? Aside from the fact that just sharing online and, you know, publishing, whether it's a blog or, you know, creating something on YouTube or you know, Xerox zine or something, it's just a real creator is going to keep creating and just get better and better. So I wouldn't worry about that. Plus, adding to that is watermarks make you look like the amateur, and they look tacky, and they make your art look cheaper, I think.
Yeah, and that's one of the topics I wanted to get into. So yeah, watermarks, and I have to totally agree with Kevin. And one of the reasons why when Kevin asked if Josh could come in, I wanted to talk to him because Josh is an art director. So I really think that watermarks are a turnoff to art directors, but I wanted to get an art director's opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, they're a turnoff, and then the reality is, like, if you've been using Photoshop or Illustrator for a long time, if you want to rip something off, like a watermark, it's like the easiest thing to move. So if somebody's going to rip off your work, they're going to rip off your work.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. It's kind of like the, I guess a good analogy would be like, you know, every day that you walk outside of your door, you're taking a risk that somebody might do something horrible, you know?
Right.
But, you know, does that mean you should shut yourself inside your house and, like, buy 1 million locks?
Yeah. Well, it's like it's like kind of like that seatbelt analogy where certain stories where a seatbelt may have caused somebody, if they didn't have their seatbelt, they would have lived. But it's so rare, you know, it doesn't, you know, outweigh the fact that if you weigh your seatbelt.
I'm convinced I'm not wearing seatbelts anymore.
That's it.
But yeah, if you've got Photoshop and the content aware tool, it's really easy to remove a watermark. Now, if you put that, I've seen some people where they just plaster their whole image with, you know, just running type of watermarks. Yeah, I mean, don't do that. I mean, if you're that concerned, I mean, it's just, I don't know what to say, but it just looks bad. And I mean, you know, granted, I'm not going to throw like a 300 DPI image on my website, but but I like to post decent sized images so people can see the artwork and everything. Because the thing is, if somebody's going to steal your artwork, they weren't going to buy it in the first place. It's not like you're losing a sale.
Yeah.
The people who are stealing your artwork were never going to buy it. So I mean, you're not like losing anything. Now, in some extreme cases, if somebody does, like if a big company like what was that one, Kevin, again, the Urban Outfitters?
Urban Outfitters. Yeah.
Something like that. I mean, that's a whole different story. But if if I don't want to say I'd be flattered if they did that because I'd be pissed, but it's like, wow, man, I mean, the fact that they took that and they're actually selling it, one of my designs, but
I made it. I made it.
But that's one case where you'd be like, man, I can't sell my stuff, but these guys evidently can. But it just, that kind of stuff doesn't make sense. Why would they? I'm just wondering how that kind of stuff comes about, because is it somebody else submitting? It must be somebody else submitting it to them saying it's theirs. Some other artist.
Because they're notorious for that.
Yeah. So
it's Urban Outfitters doesn't make their own T-shirts. Like, they're just a retailer. So it's the T-shirt companies that are selling to Urban Outfitters their collections. That probably had some devious artwork made, and Urban Outfitters didn't do their research. So it happens. It does happen. But there's ways you can get recourse if your ideas are stolen, especially if they were published.
Right.
The internet is a wonderful hate machine when it comes to people ripping off other people's art. And so you can use the tool of the internet to shame the companies that have done that. Anytime that's happened to me, I just posted on Facebook, and within like 20 minutes, the company pulls the art from their site because they're embarrassed and they're worried about like getting baited and attacked all the time.
Yeah, and that's the one thing. I mean, artists hate seeing other artists' work stolen, so they will rally around you. And the other good thing is, the internet makes it easy for somebody to steal your work if they want to, but it's also easy to find if somebody's stealing your artwork, because all you have to do is take one of your images, put it in Google image search, and it'll show you where it is on the internet. I mean, I haven't really done that because I'm not going to throw in all my images and track them down. But if I wanted to, I could find out if somebody's using my image without my permission.
Yeah. Totally.
So, go ahead. You're going to say something, Kevin?
Nope.
Oh, okay. But anyway, so.
What about like I've seen this sometimes with webcomics guys, and actually a lot with just comics, and back in the day and now, which I guess there's no recourse. I already know the answer, but like a guy is basically like, takes your comic and does their version of your comic or their version of your character. Is there anything you can do about that? I mean, that's something that definitely happens.
You know what? I'm sorry, Jeff. I was looking at the chat.
Look at Marvel and DC. It's like like even within DC, it's they've got Captain Marvel, Shazam, Captain Marvel, and at one point that outsold Superman, and it's basically was a Superman ripoff. And now they've had to give him some different character a bit because now he's owned by the same company. But it's like Mr. Fantastic and Plastic Man and Elastic Man. They kind of start. I don't know. Just if something's good, someone's going to rip you off.
Yeah.
And then in order to have staying power, that thing then has to morph into something different, something original, or else it's just a ripoff. It's like if someone wanted to do an animal or even a monkey like mine or something like that, it's just not going to come off the same, and there's enough people right now that it seems like people would be like, hey, you know, that's a ripoff, because I've been doing it for a certain amount of time. But yeah, there's not much recourse unless it's like a complete blatant ripoff, you know, like shot for shot, story note for note. The character looks exactly the same. Things like that.
And then there's things that are more like, that could be considered homages, like, you know, obviously a lot of Ninja Turtles is based on Daredevil, and you know, so there's certain things like that too. That it's, but I mean, you can't really say that Ninja Turtles is the same thing as Daredevil, you know. There's, or just, you know, you go back to the Stranger Things. There's so many, you know, nods to so many other things in Stranger Things, but it's still something original, you know. So even, you know, whether you create, like when Image first came on the scene, it was kind of like they're taking all these archetypes that are, you know, popular in Marvel DC comics and kind of doing their version of them. And, you know, some of them are pretty derivative, but they might have a little something different that makes them unique. I don't know. Like, you know, there was all the Wolverine guys, but then I think Jim Lee created one kind of Wolverine guy, but instead of just the blades, he had kind of it was almost a cross between the Terminator and the T-1000 and Wolverine, where he had the blades, but they're like liquid metal, you know? So, I mean, I guess that's a little different spin on it, but I don't know. There are, I mean, and again, there's just how many different ideas haven't been done. There's really not, so.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking that, but then I was also kind of thinking, like, since you brought up Jim Lee, but, like, he's a great example of, like, you know, Jim Lee has to, or at least he had to, wake up every morning and, like, flip through the morning comics and see 12 people that draw exactly like him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's just nothing he can do about it.
Well, and I think also when Image started off, when they started hiring like their understudies and stuff, they basically hired people that could draw just like them. Like Liefeld hired people that drew like Liefeld. Like there's that guy
that draw like Liefeld.
What's that?
Are there other people who draw like Liefeld?
Well, there's that one guy. I follow that one guy, like Dan Fraga. And when he first came on, he was kind of like an understudy of Rob Liefeld. But he's since kind of developed his own stuff, and he's one of these guys that does the straight to like the finished inks without any penciling and stuff, and it's pretty interesting. So he's, you know, but you know, that's probably what that studio. That's just like a studio look, I guess. You know, if you were gonna draw Tom and Jerry, they'd give you model sheets, and you draw Tom and Jerry like Tom and Jerry. You know, so maybe it's, you know, it could have been the same type of thing. But
how do you take these guys down? That's what I want to know.
I was going to kind of go back real quick because I know we were talking about watermarks before, and I wanted to kind of clarify something. To me, when I say watermark, I mean like that like sort of faint image that's kind of plastered over your artwork and everything. Because sometimes I'll put like my little logo at the bottom of something, or like with all my prints and stuff, I don't really consider this a watermark. I will kind of hide my logo or put it, you know, or sometimes not even hide it because I'm trying to kind of create a brand around it. So I want like Serkworks to sort of be part of the print, like everything's coming out of this factory. So a lot of times I'll do that. Like also a lot of the stuff I post on Instagram, just down at the corner, not obstructing any artwork, I'll just put, you know, Serkworks with my little logo real tiny, just to kind of help brand things. So that I don't really have a problem with. It's just it's trying to, you know, stop some, and I'm not doing that to stop somebody from stealing my artwork. I'm just doing it to show, hey, this is a Serkworks piece. So every time they see one of my pieces, they kind of know that it's branded as Serkworks. You know? But I've been doing like, I just finally launched my Etsy shop, and I always did a lot of research on that. And I was watching these videos where they would like critique other Etsy shops. And there's this kind of this subgenre, or this thing on Etsy where there are these printable files. And there's tons of people doing it. I'm trying to remember what they were. They're like, I had it written down what they were called. It's some acronym for something. But it's basically the files that people use to in like those circuit machines or whatever that like cut out shapes and stuff, a lot of craft figures and everything. So I guess that's a big market on Etsy where people just sell these digital files. And all the videos, the lady that was doing all the videos was almost berating people if they didn't put watermarks on all their stuff. So I don't know if like in different industries it's different. Like I don't know if because it's a digital file, people are just stealing stuff like crazy or what. And they're really most of that stuff is really easy to steal because it was basically somebody. I mean, I'm sure there's really good stuff out there, but a majority of it is just like, I want to start an Etsy store. I maybe have some artistic talent, but I know how to type fonts on a keyboard and make a phrase out of it. And a lot of it was that kind of stuff that if you had that font, you've got that print anyway. But I don't know. That was just something unusual that I saw, and I don't usually hear a lot of people like advocating to do like watermarks and stuff. But maybe
that kind of makes sense. I bet, especially with that crafting crowd. You know what I mean? Because I think they're buying a lot of stuff, and I mean, if it's just sitting there for them to take, they're probably just taking it and running with it.
Yeah, but even like on my day job, I mean, we do rubber stamps, and we have like the images in our catalog are like gray instead of the black. I guess that's a way so it's harder for people to steal if they just wanted to like put our catalog on a scanner and scan it in. But really, all you have to do is up the levels and everything, and turn it dark enough where if you wanted to take that image and do something with it, you could. But I've been working there for a year, and I haven't heard anything about their big concern about people stealing stuff. So I don't know. But yeah, I mean, maybe in different industries it's a little different. But as far as me and you heard it from Josh. I mean, I think if an art director is looking to hire somebody, I think they're going to get frustrated if there's a big mark right over your image.
Yeah. I don't like watermarks either. I think they're ugly and probably don't do much anyway. I'm kind of like with you. If they're going to steal it, they're going to steal it.
Yeah.
But then you have to go after them.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean,
to China.
Yeah. It's Were you gonna say something?
No, I don't know. Not really. Sorry. Really have no points. So.
Has anyone been watching the chat? I'm not sure if they're. It doesn't look like they're really on the. I was going to try to pull some topics from it if they were, talking about what we're talking about, but it seems like most people are kind of having their own conversations.
Do you think that's a valid way? Okay, here's a question. Do you think that's a valid way to? Oh, this is so bad. Do you think it's like a valid way to think of like T-shirt designs and just go around and like find a bunch of T-shirts designs and like switch them around and make them into your own T-shirt designs?
What do you mean?
Kind of like, well, I mean, all of you just said like there's no original idea, blah blah blah. I mean, and you're right. There's like all these, especially like parody T-shirts and stuff like that. You could pretty much just take the idea, draw your own version, slap it on a T-shirt, and
possibly. You know what? Something that I will admit that I do. Like if I'm on Etsy or something or somewhere, and I see like a cool idea, like a pun or like some kind of cool like science saying or something, and if I look at it and it's just not executed very good, and if I say I like the idea but the way the drawing and stuff is just not good, I might just. And a lot of the times those ideas, there's a bunch of other people doing them anyway, because it's like. It's like a science joke, an inside science joke that people just tell, and the person that I'm looking at probably wasn't the guy that came up with the idea anyway. But if I see like a kind of a neat concept, and I said, well, yeah, they could have done more with that. Sometimes I'll just do my own take on it. I don't know if that's a bad thing.
What happens if that artist like comes after you and gets on Twitter and starts like railing you and it's like, hey, that was my idea.
Well, I don't. Again,
hey, you didn't do it good anyway.
Again, it's sort of an idea, and like we were talking about before, people might have similar ideas, but I'm going to tell mine a different way.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna just duplicate.
I improved it. I'm kidding. I know what you're saying, dude. And I think everybody gets ideas that way, actually. I mean, not necessarily ripping them off, but we all like what we like, and we want to put our spin on the stuff we like. So next thing you know, Stranger Things is there, right?
Well, I mean, you could say that Super 8 came before Stranger Things, and Goonies
That's
came
true.
before all of them. So it's yeah. But you know, every once in a while you get somebody that is like that. That's like, oh, you know, somebody totally stole my idea, and then you look at it and like, well, there are some similarities, but I don't think they stole your idea. I think there was just an idea that one way or another somebody else kind of was on the same wavelength and came up with it. And I did a YouTube video. What was it? I forgot what I entitled. Oh, I think it was like, did somebody steal my idea? And I kind of approached it like if you read the caption, it was like I was pissed off because somebody stole my idea for Young and the Dead and made a comic, because there was another, you know, kids versus zombie comic that Action Lab put out. But you know, I looked at it and it's like totally different, and I pretty much said, you know, these people, the chances are these people have never even heard of my comic book. They just had, you know. It's not like no one else can come up with that idea, you know. Yeah. But when you compare the two books, they're like totally different, other than the core, you know, idea behind it.
Yeah, zombie kid.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I was gonna say something and I forgot what I was gonna say. I don't know. So I don't know. Any of you guys on the chat, what do you guys think? You can leave comments if you are. You guys, is there anything regarding like protecting your artwork that we didn't cover that you might want us to talk about? Or I'm not gonna like wait silent. So I don't know. We can. It's weird because when you do these, we try to, you know, sometimes we'll just do random questions, and then sometimes we'll do a topic. And there's been times where we'll do one, and it's like, Jeff I think there was one time Jeff said, I don't think that'll make a whole show, and it did. And then this one, I'm thinking, well, this might make a whole show, and then maybe
never forget that. Well,
yeah. I was just proud that we were able to do it. Oh, let's see. So Mike Emmerich says, is it worth getting everything copyrighted then? Again, like, it's copyright when you create it, but if you're, from my understanding, again, I'm not a lawyer, but the only reason you really need to like register something is if you do need to go to court over it. And then I guess it's just a matter of taking, you know, proving that when you created this based on what you put out there and everything like that. So if you want to be safe, like I said, you don't want to sit there and copyright every single little thing you do, but if you want to collect everything, and I mean, it doesn't even have to be an actual like professionally bound book or anything, but if you put everything together, staple it and call it one work, and then you want to register it, like if you wanted to register, if you wanted to register Space Cat once you like had it done, I mean, it's not going to hurt, but it's, if you're doing that a lot, is it really worth the money you're spending? Because that would add up, because I think it's like $20 or $30, per whenever you register. But again, it doesn't. They're not going to take, if you give them like a 100-page book to register, they're not going to charge you for every page. But if you send individual pages in, they are going to charge you for every page. So,
just having it copyrighted too, I mean, really doesn't stop somebody from stealing it.
Right.
You're still going to drag them into court.
Yeah,
so,
and unfortunately,
you're not going to. Yeah, that's like what you got to be ready for too. So if you're not going to do that, because I mean, even if somebody wrote me off, I doubt I would even drag them into court. Unless it's like Steven Spielberg and made $100 million or something.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing too.
Hopefully you could, but if they're like out of state, it's so expensive. You have to fly to the state.
Right.
Register to small claims court unless what they did was like over like $8,000 in damage. And if it's over $8,000, maybe it's worth you getting a flight, but then you have to lawyer up. It's like I think there's a.
And then you got to get them to pay if you win. If they're like a deadbeat, they're not going to do that either. So.
In all my contracts.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Josh. In all my contracts, it says that if there's a dispute, it has to be handled in the state of Arizona where I live. Mm-hmm. Just because, I don't want to, but it's never come down to that. And really, to be totally honest, if there was a dispute, it's probably going to cost you more to fight it than probably what they owe you anyway.
Yeah.
And there's like, I forget who was telling me this story, but or if I heard it online or something like that, but there was a company who was just like totally, they were working with a client, and they, you know, stipulated that they could use the work for a certain thing. And then they started using it on all kinds of things. And it was just getting to the point where the guy was losing tons of money, and he went to fight it. And the company paid more, they paid more to fight it than what they owed the guy, just like out of spite. Yeah. So the thing is, the big companies, you really can't win. Like if Disney decides they want to steal your stuff, you're kind of out of luck. And the thing is, if it's a small, just nobody company or a person that steals your work, they don't have any money to collect from. So either way, you're kind of out of luck.
Yeah, I think that's why it's also a younger tendency too, like newer artists, because legal fees and lawyering up is really expensive.
Yeah.
So it's just something to keep in mind too. You know, that's why like cease and desist letters were invented, because the idea is hopefully the client will just cease and desist, and then you don't have to go through that nightmare.
Right, and like you said, if you can get the internet on your side, if somebody steals your work, that's probably more effective. I mean, that may be more effective than a cease and desist. And a cease and desist doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah, on the bigger companies, they usually just don't want to deal with it. Like they don't want to have a black spot on their record. They don't want to. My experience with freelance, and this might be backwards, but people have been screwed over by the most were all mom and pop companies.
Yeah.
Like when I was a freelance illustrator, the least reliable were the mom and pop or the startup companies. The big corporations, they just didn't want to deal with the possible legal fallout. Probably because, once again, even though they have massive legal teams, they know that costs. It costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's also a headache for a big company, and most of the time it's easier for them to just go, oh, pull the product. So they're not like relying on it, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, but the internet is easily the coolest thing that's happened with that. I mean, it's made it more accessible for people to rip things off, but like you said, Scott, like you can find people ripping you off a lot easier, and usually your community will let you know. Like every time my artwork's been on a TV show, or if it's been stolen, or if it's, you know, been like somebody's been wearing one of my t-shirts who's famous, any of those things, like I find out from people before I ever find out by myself, you know, like it's just some friend or friend of a friend who's like, hey, that's so-and-so's t-shirt. That's cool that that person's wearing it. Or, hey, that's messed up. That's not that designer's. That's my friend's design.
So let me ask you this then. I mean, I've heard like certain things where somebody like wears a shirt that you designed on a show or something like that, where they're like, oh, you don't have permission to use that. But would you be concerned about that, or would you be like, oh, that's kind of like people are seeing my shirt, you know?
Well, because my shirts were usually printed by companies, like I didn't screen them myself. That's up to the company. So like with Threadless, like I think very smartly, they're like, the more TV shows that wear our t-shirts, the more t-shirts we sell. So sweet.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think like a lot of companies, newer companies are like that. Whereas like, I think, you know, if you're wearing like a Nike t-shirt, they might litigate you, you know, especially if it's huge, you know. So you have to get permission from bigger companies to like exhibit shirts or whatever, especially if it's like a feature film. If it's like a public speech or something, I don't think it applies. So
yeah, because I mean, I would think that you want. I mean, I think a lot of people like send stuff to bloggers and stuff because to feature their work, or like because if a celebrity wears one of your designs, I think that's a good thing because people want to wear what celebrities have, and I think that would up the sales. Like I was even thinking because I noticed I was watching, I forgot, some talk show where they had some of the kids from Stranger Things, and the kid that plays Lucas, every time that he's on a show, he always wears like a bow tie. So I was thinking, man, if I could send this kid a bow tie, maybe he'll wear it. You know, people are like, oh, where do you get that bow tie? But you know, I think a lot of people do market their stuff that way. They send stuff to bloggers or just anyone that's got a big YouTube presence. That I mean, that's how they get like endorsements from like whether it's like Loot Crate or something like that. So and they send that stuff, or they'll send stuff for review, and so that's kind of a good thing. So I guess you can. But then I don't know the specifics, but I heard something about it was like a cosplayer, and somehow. Tell me if you guys have heard this, because I don't really know the whole story, but I don't know if the cosplayer used. Oh, I think it was like they were kind of camouflage or cosplaying as some kind of camouflage with the actual whatever event it was. So they kind of duplicated the pattern of the carpet in whatever convention hall they were in. And that convention hall, I don't know if they were successful, but I think they sued the cosplayer.
What?
Because of the carpet. Yeah.
The carpet
I don't know.
is
I heard that
copyright?
recently, and I don't remember where it's from, but I'll have to see if I can Google that. But
That is weird.
Really?
yeah.
It looks like my carpet, too.
It's like, Josh, you remember living in Portland, and everybody would post pictures of them with the carpet, the airport there. But that carpet has some legs. So I guess, some people are going to be fans of carpet.
Oh, you know what? I think it was. Oh, you know what it was? Now that it was, I think there's some show on some cable channel that's like Heroes of Cosplay or something like that. I don't know if that's the name of it, but it was a show, and that's what it was. So it would be like I've seen the one where they have like they did have one that the Jim Henson Company did. I think it was called Face Off or something. I think that was Jim Henson. I don't know, but they would have people do like special effects makeup and stuff. So I think there's another one like that for cosplayers, and that's what it was. They featured it on the show, and I guess whoever manufactured that carpet saw it, and I think they sued the show. So,
Oh, maybe just because they wanted money. They're like, you're selling our carpet or something. That kind of makes more sense.
yeah. So
So you never know.
But then again, somebody had to design the carpet. We're all artists. We're all designers. I guess it is somebody stealing your idea if you design that carpet. But I don't know, certain things like that. I guess there's all different levels. But
Yeah.
Yeah, there's legendary examples too. Like one of the most brilliant designers, like whoever lived, Milton Glaser, who did the I Heart New York shirt. He gave the city of New York that copyright, and so if you are, say, like just a knockoff T-shirt store, or anybody who like uses that I Heart New York, it's the icon of a heart, the I Heart NY, you'll get sued so hard by New York City, and they make tons of money off of it. And rightfully so, because prior to that shirt being invented, nobody had I Heart Anything shirts.
Right.
Heart icon.
So can you get
like a really obvious idea, but he was smart enough to register it. Whereas the guy who did the love icon in where is that? Philly?
Philadelphia.
Yeah. So Robert Indiana, like that guy, didn't actually register that as an icon before making it a public sculpture, and so he has to sit back and watch that reprinted on greeting cards and all over the place, and he doesn't get a penny. And they reprint his design exactly. So it's interesting. If you're heavily into graphic design and you're doing like huge branding, trademarking and copyright is probably a lot more important than if you're an independent creator like we are, Yeah. Where it's like, my biggest fear is like for getting ripped off is like, hey, somebody steals my T-shirt design and I have to write them an angry letter or something. It's not, to the extent like those guys,
I know like the boxing announcer, Michael Buffer, it's Let's Get Ready to Rumble.
Yeah.
Now that I just said that, he could sue me. He owns that phrase. I don't know if it's just saying it with the exact inflection that he does it. And I think even if you say let's get ready to and then something else, I think you can still sue you for it. So there's a lot of weird things. Even like for a while, like the birthday song, you know, Warner Brothers claimed they owned it, but I think finally they said that no, they don't own it. But for a while, you know, you couldn't sing the birthday song.
Yeah.
I did actually get a copyright strike on that birthday song because I had a video with my kid and I put the happy birthday in there, and they actually
Was it
copyright.
Warner Brothers? Was it Warner Brothers?
I don't remember. I don't remember.
Yeah,
Somebody
because
was claiming it.
I heard recently that, and it was some weird thing, like they weren't even the original person. It was like somehow they acquired that or somewhere. I don't know all the specifics, but last I heard that it's okay to do that now, but I don't know, sing it. But like even because if you ever go to like if you used to like go into a restaurant where they sing Happy Birthday, it's usually some weird variation of it. It's like happy birthday, happy birthday, instead of like happy birthday to you, because they couldn't say it before.
Wow.
And it's like those are just weird things that you don't even like realize, you know.
Yeah.
Talk about like, you know, we were talking about like maybe some people uneducated the fact that you can't just take something off Google Images and use it, which to me just sounds like how could you not know that? But yeah, I mean,
I actually can believe it though, you know, especially when you get outside of like the artist crowd. Like we're all artists here. I listen to like a lot of writing podcasts and stuff, and it's like it's amazing like where these like they talk about like what's a good place to get a cover. You know what I mean? Because they love like these like Photoshop together covers, and it's like they grab images wherever the hell they get them and they change them around, and stick them in there, and they don't think that that there's anything wrong with that. You know?
Yeah.
And I think it's just it's just a different mentality. They're not educated or in the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't mean they're uneducated, but you know what I mean. They don't think about it in the same terms. Like like if somebody was grabbing their book and like printed half of it up and wrote their own ending, they'd have a fit. But you know what I mean. They don't look at it the same way with art.
Right. Yeah. It just seems weird that people wouldn't know that, but I mean, yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah.
So there was a question. So hold on, I was trying to read this.
I think the real question is Mike gonna copyright Space Cat?
Yeah.
My bet is he probably will.
It already is. It's
Already got his $15 in the mail.
Yeah, and I know Mike. I think Mike's already aware of this, but I think there's another guy that does a comic called Space Cat. So that's
dang it!
Again, his comic is like totally different. But I don't know how that works. Because the name of the comic, that isn't copyright. That's a trademark. That's something entirely different. So I don't really know, how that works. If you can have two comics called the same thing or what. But
you can't actually have two like book titles. Like it depends on like the names. I think there's a rule like with general names, like like with my like stop motion, like have a wolf in the title or something like that.
Yeah.
That like people can can name, because it's like I don't know, you know what I mean? It's like you can't own that, but like if you named it something like I don't know, but I don't know if Space Cat would make it so much more definitive that the two people couldn't have a Space Cat comic. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because like Space Cat, I mean, you could see that two people could come up with totally different ideas with the same thing, but then again, Spider-Man is a spider and a man, but obviously you can't do Spider-Man. So I don't know. Man, I had a point here. Let's see if it comes back to me. Somebody say something. What my point was. I was going to say, based on that, because like a lot of times movies will have like the same title. Like I think there's two movies called Crash, and there's
that's a good example right there.
So and they're usually the way you differentiate is the year. It'll say Crash like 2000 whatever that came out 8 or whatever, and then the other one. So a lot of times that if it's how could you just copyright a one-word thing for a movie? But it also might depend on how like popular that thing becomes.
I know. I was thinking like Spider-Man might be a good example of that.
Yeah,
it's just so popular now you can't touch it.
Yeah, well, like there's also that thing, and this may may have got over. I don't know if it got overturned, but somebody won a case against it. But I think we've talked about this before. That the term superhero is a joint trademark between Marvel and DC, which seems like the most bizarre thing I've ever heard. That those two rival companies would somehow get together, and so if anyone else other than them, you can't have the term superhero. But I think there was a case recently where they said that that term is just so, it's been used so much and it's so much in the public, consciousness and everything, that they actually said that this other guy could use it that had this independent comic. But I know when I used to work for the game studio, we had a game called Superhero Conquest, and we had to change the name of it to just Hero Conquest because Superhero was owned by Marvel and DC. And that was, again, talk about things you don't know. I mean, I never had any idea when I heard that the term superhero was trademarked. I was like, you gotta be kidding me, So
yeah,
it's just those weird things you don't even think about, because it is. It's like that's what I mean. What else do you call? What else do you call a superhero other than a superhero? I mean, some people say like metahumans or something. That's why other comics they'll use different terms for it, but. But even within the Marvel's own universe, they can't, since Fox owns the rights to X-Men, that also includes mutants. So Marvel proper, or Marvel Studios, whatever they call themselves, can't use the term mutants in Avengers or anything. I think because when they introduced Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, they couldn't call them mutants. I think they called them. I forgot what they called them, something else, like gifted or I don't know, something, but they couldn't call them mutants.
That's wild.
So, but I mean, you could create, but you could do if you did a post-apocalyptic world where people are mutated by nuclear waste, you could call them mutants. So it's kind of weird. How does that? I guess if it's mutants relating to sort of superhero people, only Fox, who's licensing from Marvel, can use it, but you can use the term mutants in other terms. I don't know. It's very confusing.
Yeah, man.
Ox said they were called Inhumans. Well, I think because they were. That's what I think. For a while, Marvel. I think they kind of axed the whole Inhumans. They were going to introduce them, but I think they were. And I haven't really followed the television other than the Netflix shows, but I think they were I think they introduced some of the Inhumans on what's this Shield, Shield, and then I think they decided to take the Inhumans movie out of the schedule, but as far as the theatrical stuff. But I think that was probably just going to be what they were using for their mutants,
No, they actually had a human storyline that was fit the comics.
Yeah, but I was thinking. I know there's mutants in comics, and there's also Inhumans, but I just kind of had the idea that's since they couldn't use because Marvel, what they did, since everyone else owned their properties, they took second tier and third tier characters, and now those are bigger than some of the X-Men and stuff. I mean, Iron Man was, I knew who Iron Man. I think most people kind of sort of knew who Iron Man, and you'd see him in he had cartoons and stuff before, but he wasn't, Spider-Man or but that's all they could use. And then they go deeper even to things like Guardians of the Galaxy, and now they're making a Disney ride out of Guardians of the Galaxy, so it's that was just kind of this fringe title. So, but I guess they had to use whatever they could. So,
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize that, but that makes sense. That's why I guess they went back and got the Avengers out of retirement and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
But now we're talking about comics again. Maybe it's sort of on topic, but.
Somebody says who forgot about the whole Candy Crush debacle a few years back. I guess I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I don't know. You'll have to elaborate that.
No, that's an app. It's a game.
But I know Candy Crush, but I don't know what the debacle is about.
Yeah, what's the debacle about?
So Adam Lore says there's something called Real Monsters. Oh, Real Monsters is not copyrightable, so they added Real Monsters, that old Nicktoons show. So yeah, I could see that. Mike says he'll change it to the Spectacular Space Cat.
Nice.
I'm just kind of going through here. They tried to copyright the term candy. Oh yeah, okay, now I think I did. Yeah, because any game they wanted to say any game that had the term saga in it. Because I don't know if they were successful with that or not, because there was another thing like that too, and they had just kind of used that with all their games. And I was kind of working in games at the time, so I remember that now that you mention it. But I don't know about copyrighting candy, or either of them. It seems kind of ridiculous. But they did kind of
saga. Yeah,
they kind of created a brand with that. So, what I'm trying to. There was another one that was really like common, that they would just use the same thing for each one of they just put that at the end of it. And I think, what was it? No, I think it was, because we had, the company I work for, we had, different, we were actually the first one that ever actually made a city builder type Facebook game. It was called My Town, and then they became big in like all the like Farmvilles and stuff like that. And I think it was the same thing with Farmville. You couldn't have, the only people that could have Ville at the end of their game were the creators of Farmville. So that's weird. It's weird. I don't know how that works, and I think because when we made that game, I think we also registered a bunch of other type of ideas for games that we were going to produce, and they ended up selling some of them to some of those bigger social game companies because they wanted everything to kind of, we had the URL. I guess maybe they had the copyright, so we couldn't use it, but we owned the URL. So they ended up selling the URL back to whoever it was, like was the big one for a while. What was that? What was the one that made Farmville? I forget. I don't even remember the name. I don't think they're like as huge as they were. But whatever that big social game company was, they had a little dog for the logo. I don't remember. It was the big one, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is crazy. We should have got an attorney on here to explain all this stuff.
Yeah, should have got a pro.
So I had some notes, but I think we may have covered most of this stuff. Let me see.
It's funny, like, because, I have some, I've investigated, like, copyright a lot, probably, on the fan art side, because I don't want to get in trouble. And, from the guys that I run into a lot of times, as far as, like, attorneys and stuff, it's usually, the answer is, like, it depends, you know what I mean? And they usually have that same thing. It's like, they can drag you into court for anything. So, are you like safe doing this or safe doing that? Well, it depends. It depends if somebody's going to come after you, like what's safe. Yeah. And also what's going to actually win in court. There's a lot of stuff floating around on the net of like this and that. But then, what's the reality of like what's a judge going to decide when you get you in there? So. Just thought I'd throw that out since there was a kind of a dead airspace.
So, but yeah, there's all of the type of, whether it's watermarks or, sometimes you'll get people that, I don't know, some people seems kind of, and I apologize to anyone that does this, but, but you get the people that like disable the right click and stuff, like they're, they don't want you to steal their stuff. But okay, if you wanted to, you could just take a screenshot, and because there's been points where because sometimes I'll take and I'm not going to use the image for anything, but like sometimes I'll sample colors for it. Something's got a cool color scheme, and I'll like sample the color scheme, but it's with a totally different style illustration and everything. But sometimes you'll click on something, and you have no bad intent or anything. You're not you're not trying to sell it, or you're not going to duplicate, or even if you're like somebody that's just learning to draw and you want to print something out so you could just learn how to draw, but then you'll click on it and it says, I caught you trying to steal my work, you bastard. It's like a little type pops up and I'm like, whoa, man, calm down, guy. You ever get any of that?
I've never seen it.
You never seen that?
No.
More a few years back though. I haven't seen that for a while.
Yeah, I think that was more of an older thing, and I feel like all bad. Like I'm not trying to steal it. I'm just
Yeah.
So.
But you could still get on.
Yeah,
wanting it.
I mean, again, whatever time it takes you to put your watermark in, it probably takes about half that time for somebody to remove it if they've got Photoshop and a content-aware tool.
Then you're just daring somebody to steal it. I think you're just like.
Yeah, it's like when you put "do not bend" on your US.
That's right. You're just asking for it.
I don't know if Ollie's in the chat, but I commented she was showing us something on her Instagram where she had put "please do not bend" on all this stuff, and I said that's an invitation, but she said I said please, and that might help a little bit. And I was like, maybe you're like, please, for everything that is good in the world, do not bend this package, I beg of you. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, just a lot of that stuff. I don't know if it's even worth it if you are concerned about it. And I think kind of what it boils down to is if somebody's going to steal your stuff, there's nothing you can do. There's always a way. I mean, it's like the record companies tried to fight this forever, and guess what? They lost. I mean, you can't. I mean, if somebody wants to take your stuff, they're going to take it.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's unfortunate, but I don't think it happens as much as a lot of people think it does, and I
do think you're right. It's like a lot of the younger. But I also think it's just them trying to figure it out.
Yeah, no, I think we're all there.
Asking.
I think we all did this stuff, and now that we've been doing it for a while, and they were like, yeah, you kids, you don't know what you're doing, but we were all there too. We all made the same mistakes.
Yeah, because I totally remember trying to pre-internet just be like, do I need a copyright? I don't know. You know what I mean? You don't know. So there was no Artcasters around to belittle me for it. Or at least, scold me or whatever.
Yeah, so I guess Holly is in the chat. Let's see. She says, laugh out loud. Yeah, I don't know. I read somewhere if you don't put "do not bend" on the mail, how did I read that? That the mail can, but if it's written on both sides, they're not supposed to. So yeah, I don't know. There is they do. I ask them, like when I go to the post office, I ask them to put a stamp on it that says "do not bend." But so I do that too. It's just like,
yeah.
Some people like I worked at UPS and I'd never do that, but some people they don't care. It's like if somebody's having a real bad day, it's like, do not bend. Oh, I'll show you. You don't tell me what to do. So you never know what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
Or it's like the last straw and they're about to quit. You just never know. And that could be the last straw. That is.
No.
So. I don't know. Any other? I think we covered a lot of this stuff. So
yeah.
I don't know.
So
Anything?
you got copyright on your comic there, Kevin?
Me? Oh,
yeah, it's copyrighted.
Kevin. It is copyrighted. Oh right, yeah, it's not registered with the $15 charge or whatever.
Like my first book, and again, this is kind of because I was younger. I was concerned about that, and I sent the synopsis and everything in and got it registered and all that kind of stuff. But I haven't with Young and the Dead. But it is. I think depending on what it is, if it's a book or something, you do want to put inside the book. You do want to say, these characters are, the typical thing. If there's any similarities, and these characters are owned by me, and then copyright symbol and all that stuff. Yeah. But I do remember when I was younger, and I would put the copyright symbol. You know what? Now that I think about it, I think that ruling is fairly recent, as far as I think it was like in the mid 1980s when it was decided that whatever you create is copyright the minute you create it. So part of that might have been like when I was younger. It may not even have been a thing. But like when but after high school, that's passed when they made that a law. But I'd put the copyright symbol, and I'm thinking, oh, am I going to get in trouble for putting this even though I didn't register it? You know. But no, you can put your copyright symbol on your thing if you know, especially if you're doing like a book or whatever, and add that protection and stuff like that. And if you are concerned, like sometimes. If you think it'll help, I think a lot of people just don't understand. But if on your website you want to say all the images on here are owned by me and stuff, you can do that too. I don't know for what good that'll do.
Yeah, I do that on mine.
Yeah. So Holly Brown says she used to work at Michael's and they would climb over all the boxes. So she imagines the mail was like that. Yeah. And sometimes it's not. And sometimes it isn't necessarily a person smashing it up, but like. It's all automated. Like Kevin worked at UPS too. He knows. But I mean, it comes down these chutes and it gets smashed in between other things. And so, I mean, if you knew all the stuff that could happen in your package, it's amazing that anything does get
and then you have a supervisor yelling at you, go, 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 go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just got to make it so it can't bend. That's the key. But one time when I was at the post office, I heard somebody, talking, and the lady, I don't remember if she was complaining or just, asking or what, but the lady behind the counter said, it's got to be able to withstand 70 pounds dropping on it. I was like, I never heard the number before. And she's like, yeah, because they take carts, and like you can see like the carts they throw them, like those big bucket looking carts, and they just tip them over, so all the shit's gonna fall on your stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's a candid thing from the post office, But I've always remembered that. So whenever I think it's like packed good enough, I add a couple more pieces of cardboard.
Yeah. Well, you're seriously. I mean, with the PVC pipe and everything.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's
kids.
Yeah. Like, so the guy that decides he wants to smash your thing and steps on it is going to hurt his foot.
That's right. Those suckers get. What I notice, like the thing that happens when you start sending those around is they get opened a lot. You know what I mean? Like everybody like talks about how they're getting them like opened, whenever they go overseas and stuff. Because I wonder if they're like thinking there's like a bomb in there or something.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. I didn't think about that. Because I don't know if they've run any of that stuff through like X-rays. If they see this big plastic thing, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're that sophisticated. If it's like NSA stuff.
I don't know. Yeah, who knows why they're pulling stuff aside and opening it.
So this video is totally going to get watched by the FBI and the NSA.
I know.
Because we sang the happy birthday song. We have now discussed the potential of people thinking what you're mailing is a bomb. This is just this is right for loss.
You're gonna have the boxing promoter and the birthday song creator and all that stuff coming after us.
Yeah, man, this one's.
Make sure you don't mention the Super Bowl. We're really it's remember, it's called the big game. You can't say Super Bowl.
I love it.
I don't know. I mean, we've been going for what, about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Do you want to kind of wrap it up then? I think we pretty much covered the topic, unless anyone else has anything else they want to chime in with real quick in the chat.
We're waiting in silence.
Waiting in silence. That's all right. All right. So let's see. Let's start off with our guest, Josh. So where can people find you if there's anything you want to promote or anything like that?
Yeah, you can check me out on YouTube's, just checking out Polly Nothing, or you can also just search for Joshua Kemble, and you'll end up at my YouTube channel, which you should subscribe to because I post cool stuff on there. And then also my webcomic is at quarterlystories.com. Boom.
Okay. And Kevin?
As always, I'm going to point people to youtube.com/KevinCrossArt, and all my links to social networks and portfolios and all that good stuff, webcomics, whatever, are in the description under the video.
Okay. And I usually save Jeff for last because he's got a spiel he's got to get to. But as far as me, you can find me at YouTube. I pretty much Serkworks online. But I do have an Etsy store that I just launched. So if anyone ever uses Etsy or anything, or if you shopped on Etsy or anything like that, if you guys do me a big favor and if you want to go there and just favorite my store, that would be awesome, because it's like that's one thing I'm trying to do is get it out there more. I'm going to do some videos on. I think I'll do a video on like creating the Etsy video and different things like that. But just check it out. You don't have to buy anything, but even like little favorites and things like help. So I'll maybe paste that in the chat and also in the description so you can check that out. Also, like on my YouTube, if anyone's interested, if you guys are comic book creators, I just put up a video on how to do a pitch. So I think there's some good advice in there and stuff like that. And also there's a thing going on over on Jason Brubaker's channel, like a pitch timber where people just do their pitch. So I got my pitch up on there. And then, so if that's something you're interested in, there's some good stuff in that video, so you can check that out on my channel. So, Jeff, what about you?
JeffLafferty.net is my website, and everybody should sign up for the newsletter. It's just a notification for the show every week, and the show rotates between all of our channels, me, Scott, Kevin, and Scott. So it's just an easy way to keep up with it. And I don't spam you. I just send out a quick message before the show starts that says, "Hey, come check out the live chat. Hurry!" So anyway, there you go.
All right. Okay. Thanks for everyone in the chat. We'll be back next week. Is it Kevin or you, Jeff?
I think it's Kevin this time.
Yep.
Okay. So next week on Kevin's channel. We'll see you guys later.
See ya.
Bye.